Well, hello. Come on in, come on in, come on in. I hope that you are here joining me. My name is Tigress Sydney Acute McDaniel, and this is Evolve Weekly, a 52-week series on a more perfect union, hashtag AMPU. I'm going to immediately recite our affirmation. Okay. May I further enlarge our collective and individual understanding on the subject matter, and may I not further cause divide. All right, so today we are going to go over several things. If you'll recall, let me get my other video up. I can see I guess I should turn this light off, huh? Is it? Yeah, let me turn it off just a second. Give me a second here. All right, here we go. Here we go. Is that better? I'm gonna hope that's better. All right. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. I've turned the perspective around just a bit for the day to give you just a different, different scenery. Same me. Okay. Whew. We are going to cover three main topics today. If you saw my post, which I hope that you did, and if you didn't, I'm going to clarify today. So today we are going to spend some more time in New York, because last week during that session, we realized that New York's legislature is pretty complex. And we wanted to really break down and really have an understanding of the organizational chart, which of course is still consistent with the general sweeping organizational chart or structure for all government, but they seem to have some other elements that are very important, okay? However, as I've mentioned to you before, along this journey, each time I discover, let's make sure we got, okay. Yeah, so each time I discover a new pressing issue or something that we need to discuss, I am going to hit the pause button on our 52-week series of covering, let me rephrase that. I'm going to hit the pause button on the element of the 52-week series that focuses on the legislative culture for each state, and we'll cover those pressing topics. So number one, and I'm trying to think, should we go in that order? Let's do, and if you have any questions, I can see you. So say hello and all those good things, okay? I think we should go ahead and just cover, in my opinion, the biggest elephant in the room, okay? And you're gonna wonder immediately, why does it have anything to do with Kamala Harris? Because of the statements that she's made or the demeanor that she has shown when asked this question. So the number one matter we're going to cover is the stimulus check, why everyone deserves it. Conversely, or juxtaposed in comparison to reparations, why everyone, every American doesn't deserve it, and why there should be a focus on reparations for the diasporan individuals and their descendants, because of course, many of those who were enslaved have not ever had justice. Few have even had their day in court on the relief that they deserved. Why it is also equally important that Jewish communities, those specific Asian communities that experience internment, And so we're talking about the Jewish community that experienced Holocaust and their descendants, Asian internment and their descendants, and Native Americans, all tribes of the Native Americans and their descendants deserve, and specifically so, and exclusively so, reparations for their individual and collective as those sub-ethnic groups they are deserving, period. Now, again, why does this have to do with Kamala Harris? Why are we picking on Kamala Harris? I'm not picking on Kamala Harris. Let's be clear about that. I do generally support Kamala Harris. And I take the position that I generally support all individuals who are on the right side of justice. But that does not mean that there is not room for improvement. That does not mean that I agree with everything each person who is on the right side of justice does. That does not mean that everything they do is on the right side of justice. They are just generally consistently on the right side of justice. Because people who are not consistently on the right side of justice generally do not have my support, if you will. So I'm mentioning this because the biggest issue that Black America had with Kamala Harris, and I'll give you a little more light. The biggest issue that that many of us, diasporan and Black Americans, had a problem with Kamala Harris on was a specific regard that she didn't seem to support reparations, albeit in her expressed statements or her expressed statements, which could be inferred from her physical responses, her physical demeanor in response to questions like, what's your view on reparations? She would often giggle under her breath, if you will. But of course, when you're on public TV, a giggle under your breath is a very visible thing. And it can communicate some very negative things if, depending on the nature of the forum, also with the eye expressions, the facial expressions, and her facial expressions always gave rise to exactly what she also would signify verbally, that she did not feel that Black Americans should have anything done for them exclusively, like only them, okay? And I understand that in one regard, but we have to be mindful because those of us who are in a position of authority, as you've already heard me say a million times over, responsibility is at its core. That should be the most important task for any supposed leader or a liaison to the community or a liaison to the people. Okay? So she would give the impression, because there's no way that it could be misperceived in that regard. Now, she may not have intended it in that manner, and maybe she was instead saying, I understand the plight of Black America because I am also of African American descent or diasporan descent, right? And she may have even had a unique understanding as it relates to all, her Indian heritage as well. And that may be the reason why she feels very strongly that not just African Americans or diasporan folk, diasporan descendants are deserving of some help, or, and I don't like the term because we should not call this help. This is relief. This isn't help. This is relief and remedy and justice. Maybe she's thinking, I have a Jewish husband. I have further understanding of the plight of Jewish America. I would imagine that, of course, she's a bright woman, very, very intelligent, very worldly, that she has before even him, that before Doug, that she had a strong viewpoint and understanding of what the Jewish community experienced. We learned these lessons very early on, the Diary of Anne Frank, in middle school, right? Or even earlier. Okay. So I would generally say, okay, I get that because it's similar to the ideology I share. Some of you have heard me be expressive in this regard. I am diasporan, but I am also of Native American heritage. There's a strong, it's not like, when some of you all kind of joke about, this, especially with Black America, we joke, we say we have Indian in our family. We've never really liked those jokes in my family because we are literally of Afro Native American descent on my grandfather's side. Okay, so my mother's side, and otherwise I am of Haitian descent on my father's side. So I understand where she's coming from when she says, well, hey, it's not just Black Americans that deserve justice and relief. There are many other communities that have been intentionally subjected to injustice, right? Okay, I get that. Duh, Haiti. Duh. And duh, Native Americans, and duh, African Americans, diasporan folks. So I get it. I get it if that's what she intends. If instead what she's intending is just to turn her nose up at the fact that we are still serious about the fact that we deserve reparations, then I can't get with it. I have a problem with it. And that's what I expressed during the campaign cycle. Like I wanted her to really go ahead and explain yourself. Please elaborate. Please elaborate because I need to have an understanding. Right? All right. So then number 2, and we're going to come back to that and finish that up. But number 2, we're going to discuss PPE. And we're doing commonsensical approaches today. And that's all we're doing today. We're not going to do anything that is seemingly high level. We're going to break it all the way down to commonsensical application of PPE, which is personal protective equipment. Okay. Then number 3, commonsensical approach to deciding upon which vaccine to take. Assuming, again, not the assume for making an ass out of you and me, but the scientific assumptions, assuming that we have a choice to make these decisions on whether or not we want this vaccine or not, whether or not we even have an elective decision. Right now, it appears that we do. I don't know if in later along this process, if a doctor's note will be required to decide upon, a specific vaccine, brand of vaccine over the other. So that's what we're doing. Okay. And then we're going to stop promptly at 5. And I would like for you to enjoy your day. So before I go further into Kamala Harris and the kind of debate that's going on, the infinite Republican disposition that we should not have given money to everybody because everybody is not deserving of a stimulus check. Why did they need a stimulus check? It should have just been monies given out to those who are in need. Interesting. And these are our quote unquote leaders. Even you Republicans should be very concerned about the individuals that you have elected because they're talking in a manner that lets you know that they are considerably detached from reality, considerably detached from the very basal concepts of human understanding even. Yes, that's a really nice way of calling these individuals, some of them imbecilic. I have to say this because I'll use myself as an example first, and then I will compare that to everyone else's experiences during the pandemic. Let's try to make some sense of this, okay? Because the stimulus check, in my strong opinion, is not just to stimulate the economy, as it would imply by the nomenclature, stimulus, right? Legislation. I like the fact that they have started calling it more pointingly the relief bill. Now, we're not going to go into all the aspects of the relief bill. I'm going to post it, and I'm going to, after we handle New York, so we can go ahead and stay on task, then maybe I'll do a session where we just have question and answer. And I'm hoping that you actually engage me with questions, or if you have input you want to share, this would be the time. And I really hope that you do join me in that regard. If I find that I don't have any questions, then I'll do my best to break down the entailments of the relief legislation. But I'm going to need a moment myself to go through it and make sure I have a healthy understanding, and then do so. So next week, New York, the following week, the stimulus slash relief bill or legislation, and then we'll go on to the Commonwealth, lowercase c, of Pennsylvania. Okay. So I'm middle class. That's what I'm considered. I'm considered middle class, not upper middle class, not lower middle class, if there is a thing, but just middle class. Before the pandemic, I could generally afford my bills. And I'll be very honest with you in every regard right now, because again, I'm using myself as an example. I moved from a house, a 5-bedroom house, because I knew that I wanted to pursue law school, and I am also completing my PhD. I'm a PhD candidate, and the expenses for a home. Some of you are very well aware of this. They were too frequently emergent for me to have my budget stabilized the way that I needed it to be for the mode of living that I have chosen to become accustomed to, and for the things that I want to do for my son. And so I moved, I downsized. We live in a 2-bedroom flat, very generally content. And it was one of the best decisions that I've ever made. My rent is $15.45. Ironically enough, the house was 17 and some odd dollars, plus all the utilities, if you will, and on and on and on. Okay. So that should tell you that, without going into all of my bills, that I'm definitely middle class, because most individuals who can afford, in Charlotte, North Carolina, afford 1542 as head of household, because of course there's no one else that is helping me with our household expenses. My son is a minor. Then they can give you an idea of all the other expenses that we may have. Okay. And so that makes me, anyone who can generally afford that is right smack dab in the middle of middle class. Okay. Before the pandemic, I could afford generally all of my expenses without, any issues, There may have been a late payment here or there on maybe some of my bills, and maybe a couple of months total in the 2 years, the two lease terms that I've lived here going into the third lease. I am choosing not to sign a lease because the word is they have increased the rent. And I do not want to be subject to those increases. I think that the increase is near equal to price gouging, especially during a pandemic, which is generally and normally against the law. But it seems that has not reached the landlords. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe it's because of the halt eviction. Maybe they're, giving them privy in that regard. I'm not really sure. I'm not really understanding how that legally makes any sense. But nonetheless, the point that I'm making is that that was before the pandemic. My business was hit very hard in March, and April and May. And it took a nosedive during the summer. And I have spent a lot of business income and some personal income, what minimal that I have from unemployment, because I do qualify for unemployment, but I don't qualify for it under the traditional umbrella of the unemployment insurance, because I am still considered self-employed, even though I own the corporation and the corporation is separate from myself. And I am a statutory employee, and everything was reported to the SSA and North Carolina DOR. Y'all know I'm legitimate out this piece. But the amount that they extended to individuals like myself, you would be just dumbfounded. The difference between what you all are receiving for the same amount of money. So here's what I'm saying. My income was about $40,000 a year. Okay. And I'm receiving, prior to the additional amounts that have been added, I was receiving $132 per week. $132 per week. And do you see what I mean? This is why I can use myself as an example in the most valid way. What I'm getting at, to just quickly run through this so that we can get to the PPE and the virus. Even though, and I'm going to be completely honest, yes, I've received the PPP loan. Yes, I've received the second draw. Yes, I've been approved for the PPP loan forgiveness for the first draw. Yes, I do receive child support, but none of these things equate to restoration of my business income and restoration of the income that I had prior to the pandemic, my personal income. So whereas we are generally okay and considerably fortunate, as most middle class individuals are, most of us in the middle class around America, we're still generally paying our bills. We may have had to make payment arrangements. I've done that with Duke Energy. In fact, I have a payment that will be due on tomorrow, as a matter of fact, before 5 o'clock. Or they'll shut my services off, just like everyone else. The point I'm making here is that when we talk about the middle class, we also must acknowledge the fact that if I'm doing just okay, And before a pandemic, middle class is considered doing okay, and can go out to eat every once in a while, go out to the movies, go shopping, kind of just live their life generally. We can't go crazy like the rich, quote unquote, but we can generally, anything that comes up, if we have a flat tire, we normally can take care of that. We normally have insurance in place to take care of this. That's how the middle class is normally doing a little bit, like 3 steps up from just okay. So now most of us in the middle class are just okay, because it's basically gradated down, right? And those of you who are considered impoverished or uh, lower class, I hate those terms. You can see it in my eyes. I don't like all these terms, but lower socioeconomic status. Your income is under a certain amount. Now, we're talking like some individuals, dire straits. Even the rich have been gradated down. You've heard them talking about it, and they're being, even though we look at them and we're like, really, really, really. So now you can't shop at Whole Foods, every day, and you can't hire your personal shopper to go pick up the groceries and deliver them to you, and you no longer can afford your personal chef. You have to cook your own foods and go pick up your own grocery. It's like the gradation. But the point I'm making is that no matter what, all of us have experienced trauma during this time. And even if it is this gradation, that this demotion, right? This gradation of our income in a downward spiral. Some of us have leveled out, some of us haven't, after receiving the PPP loan or the SBA loan. I'm still waiting for the second draw of the SBA loan, because my application was still in process. I had applied early on in March, but evidently, they had so many people, and as they were working on them, and someone had been in contact with me, I had someone assigned to my case and everything. Mine had to go under a second review. Because it went under a second review, I was kind of pushed down the line, if you will. So I'm still waiting on that aspect. We've all taken a loss. Now we can debate all day, all night about whose loss is greater, but we all have taken a loss, and significantly so. Because when you go from, I can't afford my personal chef anymore, to be honest, even if we think that that's just, petty and, whatever, it doesn't matter. We say, oh, get over yourself. The reality is that people are truly suffering, right? Well, the reality is that they earned their status, most of them. Yes, we know there are some rich people who got there and they shouldn't be there. They got there through criminal enterprise. But those of them who have worked hard and achieved a certain status, they are not deserving to be injured by our federal government's failure to manage a pandemic properly. When you go into court, and if someone, same thing with my truck, because I'm dealing with that as well. If someone hits my truck, which happened 2 years ago, it's a Land Rover. Yes, it's a 2002. Yes, it's restored, and I'm the hope is to get it registered as a classic. Okay, you hit it, then you need to be responsible for restoring it. And the law allows for that. It doesn't say that you should only, I'm only entitled to, like they try to get over with you in insurance. Don't believe those lies. I'm only entitled to the fair market value. No, boo-boo. My truck is in pristine condition. I take care of it. I have been restoring it intentionally. And I have the right to do that because when we look at this, and I always say this, we have to stop looking at individuals and say, oh, you don't have it as bad as me, trying to compare ourselves like that. Yes, there are valid times when you can do the comparison. But in this regard, the point that I'm making here is that Kamala should not be gradating who is more deserving of a stimulus or relief bill. Republicans should not be gradating who they feel like is more deserving of the relief bill. You all should not feel, especially those of you who feel like, well, I'm doing well, I'm actually getting more work, I'm fine. No, you're still psychologically traumatized by the stuff that you've seen on the television that was our previous government administration. There's so many ways that we've all experienced trauma. So it's not just a stimulus package, it's not just economically driven, it is also driven, which I strongly believe, especially considering that it is called relief, is for the suffering that we've all had to endure. The injury is an injury no matter how you find how you find your plaintiff. Some of you know this doctrine. It is the eggshell doctrine. So if they're already like, and this is how she comes across when she says the things that she says. So we've already basically, okay. Because I really want you to really understand this. Okay, so say we have someone who's making $25,000, let's $15,000 a year prior to the pandemic, and they're on government assistance, they're doing fairly well, they're trying to pull themselves up, going to school, all these things. And then the pandemic hits, and then the economic crisis, they lose the only job that they have, and all they have to really depend upon is maybe some financial aid from the school, the community college that they're attending. So they're really, they're really focused on, okay, let me stay in school, let me handle all these things, but they have suffered otherwise. So, their bills are behind. Thankfully, maybe their landlord is being kind. Some individuals, their landlords aren't being kind. The point that I'm making is that it is inappropriate for me to then say, well, what's the big deal? Because they were already poor. How ridiculous, and how high and mighty, and how detached from reality, and how offensive do I sound? They were already suffering, so it's okay. It's all right. Equally for reparations for the diasporan descendants like myself. Oh, you're doing fine now, 400 years later. So what? You don't need reparation. You're doing fine. Are we really? As we continue to watch through a pandemic, during a pandemic, even still to this day, last week, the young man at the school, I want to say he was maybe about the age of my son, experienced racism and racially motivated crimes. Because, yes, these children can be convicted of crimes. In some states, they can be tried bindingly so, despite their age. There's certain legal doctrines that allow for that they wouldn't have the defense of being, a child and incompetent of actus reus, or the ability to commit a crime, right? The mindset, well, that's mens rea, actus reus, this competence, physically carry out the crime. Mens rea is the intent, that they could form the criminal, malignant heart intent to commit a crime. And in some jurisdictions, they can be completely convicted of that. So how rude is it, even if it's just an implication and maybe it's not accurate? And I hope that Kamala Harris sees this and that she does clarify one day what she truly intended. Maybe I'll tweet about it, see if I get a response. Maybe I'll have an opportunity to speak with her directly. But how dare anyone suggest that, well, that was 400 years ago. Get over, you're okay. You're okay now. See, you live in Steel Creek. You're okay now, Tigress. Really? The generational wealth that has been stolen from my family. The lack of psychological resources for my family. The continued racism. The lack of land ownership for our generational wealth, for the Cherokee tribe that found its home in the areas around Darlington, South Carolina, specifically the Afro-Native American tribes. What about all that? You see, we must be very careful not to do that. So if no one is telling you this, please understand, and let me look very close into this, this vast expanse of the World Wide Web. And let me be the first to tell you that you do deserve the relief. You are most deserving, each and every one of you. Some of you have lost loved ones. You've lost some who were rich. They had more riches in their household. They were loving to one another, a husband and wife. Maybe possibly one was a doctor and one was a lawyer. So the lawyer had the privilege of not having to go in physically and litigate his client's actions. He's been given privy because of the orders within the jurisdictions to remotely attend his hearings. But his wife, you see, she had to go in physically because she was a frontline worker and they're working to save lives of those individuals, some who did not follow the COVID orders because they were confused about the CDC guidelines and all of the contradictions that persisted on the same in the beginning. And she inadvertently, because she would otherwise be considered, everyone would say about her, she's very, very meticulous. They still can't even believe that she contracted the virus, and she contracted the virus and quickly succumbed and died. Is his suffering less than mine? As I watched and other diasporan folk watched George Floyd be killed, as we saw and read news about Detroit, Michigan, and Chicago, Illinois, and the crime that was on the rise there, and babies younger than my child were, their precious lives were being taken. Is my suffering less because it wasn't my husband or my wife? Is their suffering less? Those who were already considered socioeconomically disadvantaged, and now they've figured out a way, maybe they've moved in, two families have moved in under the same household together. Stresses that have been put on that family, the strained relationships, the abuse that has ensued. And maybe in some households it hasn't. Maybe the abuse has ensued in the richer home environments. The point I'm making is that, and this is what I was referring to early on, and I decided to elaborate and then come back. You see, I believe very strongly that we all experience the same cup full of life. Okay. So we all get a cup full of life. And sometimes my love part of, like one person's love may be here. Maybe the love part for me is here. Or maybe the love can only fill this amount of the cup for me. And then that for the next person, the next part of their cup is full to the brim with riches, monetary riches. And others get half full knowledge. Do you get what I'm saying? But we all get the same full cup of life. So it's very, very difficult. And I'm glad that my parents taught me not to compare my life to others, to just run my race. Focus. Stop looking at everybody on the other side. You don't know what's going on in their household. Yeah, maybe they do have a Tesla. I want a damn Tesla. I want a Tesla. I want a Tesla. But maybe they have the Tesla and they have all the riches and maybe not as much love, because I have a full cup of love. But I have a full cup of core family unit love. I don't have a full cup of extended family love. I don't have a full cup of a husband type, that type of love. Maybe somewhere else they have a whole cup full of husband-wife love. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or wife and wife love, or husband and husband love, however you identify. Okay? So you deserve the relief. It's yours. If you can afford to enjoy it, then do so. If you can afford to, or you need to save it, then do so. If you have made an arrangement with your landlord, definitely, especially if your landlords are being mindful and appropriate during this time, and they're like, okay, well, I know you're getting $1,400 and your rent right now is $600. If you could just settle up with me on one of these months that you've missed, because that could really help me bounce back, and keep this stuff going until we get everything corrected, because there's still more relief that needs to come to restore us all, because that's how it works in their language of legislation, which says restoration is available. Relief, full restoration, full relief, full recovery is what the legal jargon is. Full recovery for your injury, no matter how you come in contact with the injured party. Which means no matter how you find them. If someone's rich and you mess up their Land Rover, you don't say, oh, you don't need when we get on court, hey, Your Honor, so we think Tigress is rich. She can afford to fix her own truck, so we shouldn't give her any money. All right, case dismissed. No, that's not how it works. It's not how it works. So shame on Kamala if that's your intention. And I hope that you listen to individuals like myself and you realize that you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't gradate. Gradation in every form is a very, very slippery slope. And if instead you meant something totally different and you meant what I was speaking about in the beginning, then please let a sister know. And let all of your other fellow sisters and brothers of America know. All right, so there we go. All right. Boom. What is this? This is a box of PPE. Boom. So I've gone over this before and I've told you that my science entails cleaning. Well, I'm going to say it two different ways. So cleaning up bad waste. right? It can be on an agricultural facility. It can be on a nuclear power plant site. Basically, bioremediation, phytoremediation with wetlands. Wetlands are the strongest, hands down, ecosystem on this planet. Okay. Why? Because they have all the good things in them. They have the combination of everything in it, right? I told you this before. The plants, the microbial life in the rhizosphere, the water, the microbial life that, the larger microbial, the larger microbial life, the larger organisms, right? And all these things work together to be such a powerhouse. And with that said, PPE has always been core to my line of work because it's necessary for me not to expose myself to the waste with which I work, right? And I've done this on 3 different types of facilities, and I've also done it residentially. But it's always in the same vein. So I've done studies with pesticide leaching on residential lawns and yards. I've done research, and I was always a lead scientist. I've never worked in the support capacity. I only worked in the support capacity when I was a student. Okay. So what I'm getting at is PPE is my thing, friends. I have a hazmat. I have certification in hazmat, OSHA, and a number of other things. Okay. I can show you my most recent hazmat certification. And I also have certifications in, so this is a certification under the umbrella of the Waste Management Institute. And this, of course, was in 2015. And I have certifications in waste management, the Waste Management Institute, which is basically another concentration in both my undergrad and graduate degrees. All right, so PPE is my stuff. That's my stuff. Okay, so commonsensical approach. It's not going to take long for either one of these. That's why I wanted to spend a little more time because I wanted to love on you all. I really do. I wanted to love on you all. There's been so much that you've experienced. You better take $5 and go. You better take $20, go get you a good meal somewhere that you haven't gone in a long time. Maybe you still got to sit in your car, or let's not go crazy. Let's not be sitting around with no mask on and acting crazy and doing all them things. But you all are doing generally so much better than in the beginning. Everybody's getting it. You're really processing it. All the conspiracy theories generally have fizzled on out, and you're realizing, okay, we can do this. We can do this. And understand this is going to be something that's going to go on and on and on into perpetuity because it is the nature of a scientific system. So if you have somebody that's telling you that they don't believe in science, go on, lift them up in prayer. If you believe in prayer, meditate for them or something, because we're in science. Let me say it one more time for the people in the back. Okay. Earth is a scientific element. I know. I know. Look, if you know something I don't know, because I know some of y'all are really on this whole we in the matrix thing. A matrix that would be also science. Oh, okay. So at the core of everything that we are experiencing and whatever the hell we are, we know ourselves to be humans, whatever this is, all of it is science. Ooh, I know. It's going to be all right. Okay. So commonsensically, we've been going through several different things. You need to have yourself all types of PPE. You're probably like, how she got all that PPE? Because I've had it. That's why when they were like, wear a mask, I was like, okay, which one? Hey, which one I need to wear right now? Okay. And of course, I didn't even ask. I just Googled some journal articles like I've told you all to do. And I began reading immediately to see just how severe this particular virus was. and how frequent the strains or the mutations would be, and just keep up with it. Friends, just please use your journal articles to your advantage. And when I say use your ability to research the current advances in science. All you have to do, and they're publishing articles in real time. So you can see articles that have been published just 3 months ago. They're doing it. Remember, scientists want to contribute. Our whole mode is to continue to contribute to the understanding of everything that is around us, which is science. Okay, there we go. All right. All right. So, commonsensically, you know, it makes sense in one regard, right? Makes sense. But in certain environments, it's not going to make sense because, of course, you have all of this. So if there is an environment where people are yelling or singing, if you're going to a comedy show, this is probably not the best idea. When I say probably not the best idea, I mean it's not the best practice for going to a comedy show. Okay, this is not going to, because spit. Okay, with spit, right? Expiration, right? All right. Okay. All right, so common sense what we're doing. We don't need to go high level. We don't need to do that. You don't need a certification in hazmat to rock with me here. Yes, I have, and I have lots of them. Some K95, right? I told you before that masks are generally, PPE is generally treated. So in certain environments, I wouldn't even wear just this to a comedy show. If you're deciding to go to a comedy show, I'm using this comedy show as an example because I've seen a lot of people starting to go out to events, if you will. You know, you're taking in entertainment and you're trying to figure out how we're going to be safe in entertainment venues, right? And how, like, I want to, you know, we love going to the movies. Oh my God, movies is, oh, we love movies. We love going to the movies. We love the theater so much. Okay, we love going to traditional theater as well, going to see a play. How do we enjoy that if we're gonna bust out laughing in, you know, in one of the scenes or whatever? What do we do? Okay. So I would wear a K95 because this is treated, right? And inherent to it or is the filtration, right? Now keep in mind the size of a viral the size of a viral element. We know the spike protein or the spike is infinitesimally small, right? We know that the virus itself is infinitesimally small. So yes, if we were physically taking a virus, like if we could hold the virus, right? Okay, go with me in theory land. If I could take the virus is going to go through it. For the virus, this matter is porous. You feel me? Not the plastic, friends. That's man-made. Okay. And it's generally not porous. Okay. But the mask itself, I'm going to put it back in because we're going to use these and I have not, I mean, my hands are clean, but I don't want to fiddle around with them because our hands are generally still yet not clean. Unless you stare. Okay. That's science too. Just follow with me. Okay. So if you'll notice, even there are pockets. Where are we at? Oh, you can't even really see because, oh, there we go. Okay. Right there. When you're wearing your N95, you've got these areas, right, that are not completely closed, right? All right. Breathability, wearability, all those things, right? Okay. So a virus can get through that. But remember, viruses have no motility. So unless they are in the saliva when you spit and talk, and if someone is yelling and it is forcibly being ejected, right? Then it's not gonna, it has no ride to hitch, right? To then head on over to your nostril or head on over to your ears or head on over to your eyes, right? So generally, this would be deemed safe. But if you go into a comedy club or a music venue, you are generally going to spit and yell at some point, especially when you're trying to talk, when the music is going on, even behind the mask. And we've seen the studies, they've shown where even when you have on the mask, with certain masks, especially if it has some porous element to it, then or component to it, then you are going to uh, eject saliva from your mouth, and some of it will penetrate and permeate the pores in your mask, like the N95. So what I would do is, like I've seen some individuals doing, and you've heard now they're saying to double up, right? You also have the mask with the filtration. So this is your general cloth mask, right? And they have the pocket with the filtration. Some of them use carbon, some of them use copper. Some are also treated with zinc and copper. I love them all great and impactful in their respective ways. You could use an N95 and then place this atop. This, in my opinion, is comedy show approved or theater approved, if you will. Also, let me grab this for style, because style is important. I've told you this before. And let me go back to this because I had this in my hand. Some of you may look at this and say, well, that doesn't look like that's going to be safe at all. But I told you in the beginning what I was doing. I was waiting on masks, and you remember when they had a shortage on the mask, and I had pre-ordered my additional masks. I had pre-ordered some N95s and some additional, because I had not purchased any masks like this for my son. And I said, let me get some respirators and some other things, make sure I get these things for my son. Because I've had them for myself for obvious reasons, because I'm a scientist and this is what I do. Okay. I also paint. So I've had them for that reason as well. They work twofold. The point I'm making here is that this is nothing more than a painter's mask. But then I've explained to some of you that these are treated. Mm-hmm. These you wouldn't think, but they're treated. If you look them up, and let's do that right now. Let me show you really quickly, because we're wrapping up here. Painters, wait, let's go this. So you see in real time that Tigress is not just making it up. Okay, so we'll see this right here initially, because I'm trying to pull up several ones just so you see. But you'll see that most masks are treated with a bacterial filtration and air permeability on the non-woven fabrics, right? They're also treated with alcohol or a version of alcohol, in this case, a polypropylene. Okay. And I'm sorry, not that's the fabric used, the polypropylene. It's polyester. It may look like a cotton, but it's not. It's a polyester. And it looks very thin, but they're normally treated with an alcohol. Hold on one second. Let me pull it up. Come on. Uh-oh. Did I lose it? Okay, there we go. Hold on. And that's how you can sterilize it. You can sterilize them with like a alcohol distillation, but if you don't know how to do that, then don't venture off into that world. You can treat them by spraying, like I told you before, which is, of course, that's what um, I've suggested this, and I'm glad that it is actually taking off. You can, what I have is I mix a alcohol with, hydrogen peroxide, which is highly effective at inactivating viruses or repelling viruses. And then I also treat it with essential oils, which is tea tree oil. So I will place in about a 12-ounce bottle hydrogen peroxide and the uh, 10 to 20 drops of tea tree oil. Sometimes I put in peppermint oil as well. I love the smell. If you don't love the smell, you can also add maybe 8 drops of lavender or orange or something to that effect. And they repel the viruses. Okay. Um, oh goodness. Wow. Just give me 1 second. I've shown you this before, and I hate that I should have pulled this up prior to, but I didn't. So for that, please forgive me. And see, otherwise, before this time, this specific time, I would be able to pull it up pretty easily, um, because there was no pandemic. Let's see if I can find it here. Let's see that we're going to find the same thing, but nonetheless, I will have to put up I'll put up a link so that you see it. They're treated with various types of alcohol compounds. Okay, and basically, so when you see a cloth mask like this, it is not always just the cloth itself, nor is it, and sometimes you can smell that, you smell almost like that metallic smell when you handle certain types of masks. And I am going to wash this again since I've just been fiddling around with it, because even though I've been cleaning my hands all day, I did not immediately sanitize and clean my hands before handling this mask. So anything that I'm handling right now, trust me, I'm going to sterilize here in a second with my UV light. Anyway, that's another thing. Make sure to get yourself a UV light. They're relatively expensive because UV light is something that has been perfected or generally perfected. Um, so now we can, they can be mass produced and highly effective. I'm not going to shine it at you. No, I'm not going to do that. All right. So basically, in the case of this, I have actually two. Let me get the other one. And the other is actually in my storage unit. I have one that looks like a space heater. And so it actually, much like, just so it's commonsensical, right? And relatable, much like the deneuralizer from the Men in Black. This is what these kind of jokingly resemble, if you will, or, maybe in concept. And as does the space heater looks, pretty much like it'll deneuralize, everything in the capacity. You remember the scene in the movie where they use the Statue of Liberty to deneuralize the city of New York or whatever. But nonetheless, you press the button, you can see the light. I'm not going to shine it into the area. And then, of course, you would, and of course, no more light. I turned it off. And then you would scan it over, very similar to like a handheld scanner. Scan it over whatever it is that you intend to sterilize for about 12 seconds. I tend to go a bit overboard. I tend to do at least kind of 30 seconds. Just kind of, count as I go along. And you'll start to realize once you've done it so many times how, the time of 30 seconds, you'll be able to tell when that time has elapsed. And, you sterilize. So this is the one that I have for traveling. For instance, I use this. Let's say you want to go to Dave & Buster's. I'm trying to get better with getting my son to different, getting him out and about. You want to get your children out and about and do more things, get back to some form, a semblance of, normality, if you will. This is how you can do that. We go to Dave & Buster's, and let's say he wants to get on the Mario Brothers racing game. Some of you have seen it in our YouTube videos, and you may say, well, this is kind of strange because, Tigress, I know how she rolls. She's a scientist, but they're sitting bare butt. Well, not bare butt, wearing our clothes or whatever on on these machines in the seats and everything. Oh, trust me, it's a whole process that goes in it. I think actually there is one video where I didn't edit it out and I let you see what I do before we actually sit down. We even have started using the VR headsets at Dave & Buster's. And even though they wipe all these things down, I still wipe them down, use the hand sanitizer that I have. I make my own, and sometimes I buy my own, buy the commercial products that are out there, which are generally just straightforward ingredients. And I will sterilize the chair, sterilize the steering wheel, sterilize the armrest, anywhere that we may pick up, quote unquote, the virus. Because remember, the virus needs to hitch a ride. It has no motility, right? No locomotion on its own. Okay. I've even thought about, I bought this mask because I was like, well, what if I do consider dating during this time? And I know you're like, well, this is a political channel. What you doing? Don't talk about stuff like that. No, it all matters, people. It all matters. So I was like, okay, I would like to look, attractive. I am a heterosexual woman. I want to, attract the opposite sex. You may want to attract the same sex. The point I'm making here is some of us who identify as, having more feminine characteristics, we want to look fly. And some of you men want to wear, you want to look fly. Here's an example of maybe looking fly for a man. This is the style that I bought for my son. He has some athletic ones as well. Some say Nike, some have other, of our favorite characters. He's got some with Pokemon. And you'll notice that the thickness of these are what we wear on a daily basis. This is how my family rolls. We make sure, and I've got some lipstick on, so give me a second. I'm just gonna. If I didn't have on the lipstick, I would actually talk. I don't want to get the lipstick inside because that can be difficult to get out at times. Um, Even though I do wear lipsticks that are vegan, I do wear lipsticks that are not, um, uh, don't have the animal cruelty element to them. Nonetheless, it's still a color. It's still lipstick, and it can be hard to get out of fabrics. The point I was trying to show you is that make sure that it comes all the way up. I've noticed a lot of people also wearing masks where they only cover maybe right here. The problem with that is as you're moving around, sometimes it can slip, it can move around, and you may not be having full coverage. And you may, right now, we're getting desensitized to the fact that we have it on. So we're getting to the point where we're kind of not being mindful to make sure that our entire nostrils and our mouth is covered. Okay. And I'm going to be the first one to tell you again, 100%, you're absolutely right. Some of y'all are walking around and you're saying, well, why do we need the mask at all? Because remember, it also gets into your eyes and your ears. Right. So, and I've told you a million times over, and I'll repeat myself here because I'm trying to go ahead and wrap up and talk about the the vaccine, excuse me. So I'll be ending at 5:30 instead of 5. Um, boom, 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 boom. I treat our ears. My son, myself, my mother does a version of it as well, with peroxide on the swabs, so that we have that kind of extra level of protection. No, we're not walking around with the swab in our ears or cotton ball in our ears. That's just, I just do regular cleanings with the peroxide. I don't use a lot of peroxide. I just kind of dip the end of the swab into the peroxide and clean or dab about the inside, the initial part of the opening of your ear canal. Equally, that was what I was going to show you. All right, people. Okay, you don't have to see it online. All right, let me grab the visor. All right, equally, I think it's best. I love these. Okay. Let's see. Right. These are going to be great for the summer, especially. I think these are ideal when you're outside, because the outside, remember, that's helping with circulating the air. So it's not stagnant and it is pushing away any of the spit, the winds. Even if it's low wind, the air outside is still going to circulate that away from when you're having human contact or whatever and talking to one another. This is a great option for that. The visor, of course, helps with preventing anything getting into your eyes. Alternatively, and additionally, it helps if you are someone who already has mannerisms of, maybe touching your eyes or your hand or your face. This helps you because when you go to touch your face, you're going to hit the visor instead. You can double up while you're at the shows. Again, I don't want to get any lipstick on anything. And again, they will all be cleaned. But keep in mind, these masks do need to be washed immediately. I just spoke with someone on yesterday and it concerned me, so I'm going to bring this up as well. Please make sure that you launder these the day that you take it off. The same day. I've heard that some individuals are taking these off. They put them into much like you would do with your laundry, and you put it into a laundry basket. Keep in mind that in that basket, some of you have realized this, that soiled or dirty garments can have the potentiality to grow those things that go bump in the night, right? The fungus, the bacteria, all those things have the great potentiality to grow in those environments, because what do they need? Moisture and what? Darkness, right? And that's a perfect breeding ground for it. So be mindful. So even where you may not have even you may not have a significant contamination of the virus on your mask. I say significant contamination because I've told you before, we all have come in contact with the virus at some point. What's keeping you from being from contracting the virus is how much you are sanitizing and washing your hands and removing garments that you wore when you contracted the virus. Okay, so these need to be washed immediately. They should not be put in the laundry. Okay. Yes, you are using water, and I know that a lot of us are trying to use less water, but this is not the time for that. Because please let me first tell you, as a wetland scientist, because you have a lot of people out there right now who are purporting to be experts on water. You have enthusiasts, environmental enthusiasts, and whereas I am very thankful that they want to lend their voices to help spread the awareness of sustainable practices with using water at home. This is not the time to do that. And let me make it very clear, because I ran against someone 2 years ago for a scientist position here in Charlotte. The soil and water conservation supervisor, right? Yes, it's a government position, and yes, it's an elected position. And the young lady, I was very, very disappointed because this is something that we learned very early on in elementary school, that water is a what? Renewable resource, okay? So we don't run out of water, especially on a planet that is primarily water. I know we believe that the earth is primarily land, but that could not be farther or further, rather, grammatically speaking, further and farther from the truth. This is a water world. You remember the movie? Hence, okay, with the elevation of the sea level. All right. Okay. So it's a water world. We have plenty of water. Our issue is sustainable practices on waste management for water filtration and our water facilities. That is, and it wouldn't cost us much money if we, okay, if we hired individuals like myself, or we elected individuals like myself, and we actually listened to scientists, and we stopped just doing it how we feel like we want to do it. Okay, there we go. All right, so wash your damn mask. And yes, I said damn, and yes, I'm a politician. It's okay. It's gonna be all right. Okay, so you have, and we have so many masks under the sun. The point I'm making is there are so many different options. Wear them where they all, I've shown you different ways that they make sense. Wear this to the park, get cute, do that thing. But make sure you're also keeping 6 feet apart, because that's going to be pointless if you're wearing the mask and you're standing right there in front of your friend, even your best friend that you don't know if they, COVID swinging or whatever. If you don't know your people like that, and if you're going to a picnic or whatever, going to the family reunion, because there will be family reunions this year. I'm pretty sure that people are going to try it out. So look here, friends. You see how it can still come on up in here? And then if I go to touch you right there, I defeat the whole purpose. If I touch COVID and then I touch them, you see what I'm saying? Let's use common sense, all right? Boom. Okay. Virus, vaccine. It's going to be simple as this. It don't, again, commonsensical approaches. We don't need all that time. 10 minutes it is. Let me put all this back. Okay, so these need to be sterilized. And actually, some of these have been in this basket for a little while, so I'm going to take them out. But this is, this is what I was referring to really quickly before I move on. If you're going out on a date and you want to do a thin, pretty mask, right? You just want to be, these masks, because you can see right through it. You see that? See right through it. Perfect example is then use an N95 behind it. And now you're super gorgeous, okay? It's gonna be all right. Get to know the person. Make sure that, because there have been instances, research studies, and actual accounts from hospital tests have revealed that they have found COVID in semen. They have not yet had any studies that show significant occurrence of transmission by sex of the COVID virus, but it's not impossible. We can't rule that out altogether. That's why I made that comment on Valentine's Day. Be safe, be safe, be safe, be safe. Okay. All right. So let me put all these up. And then you have this as well. These are options. This works really well. The only thing about this one, doesn't really work during the summer because it fogs up really badly. Okay, so I'm just gonna put all those right there, and there we have it. Okay. All right, here we go. And then the PM 2.5 filters, y'all know what to do. You got this, you got this. Make it make sense. Same with the virus. Okay, so I told you what my concerns were as it related to the two viruses that hit the market first, the Pfizer and the Moderna, right? And now the Johnson & Johnson, okay? My issues with Pfizer and Moderna, Pfizer, I believe, is the one that needs to be stored at -90 below, right? And then the Moderna, I believe, needs to be stored, maybe around 20 or 9 or something like that. Let me look it up real quick. Instead of sharing my screen, I'll just look it up. Moderna kept at what temperature? I was going to say 9. It needs to be kept at a little above freezing. So 36 to 46 Fahrenheit or 2 to 8 degrees Celsius, right? And only for up to 30 days within a 6-month period, because 6 months is the shelf life. Okay. All right. So also core to my field is understanding the supply chain for agricultural products, right? Okay. We understand that supply chain, and this is not to vilify anyone that is on that supply chain, but we know that our supply chain is not a perfect process. We have generally, when you look at it on a holistic scale and you compare the good or the effectiveness and the mishaps or the ineffectiveness of the overall supply chain, we beast in that thing. The world is generally on top of the supply chain, but there are instances where there is a delayed shipment. We know about this. Delays can be due to weather. They can be due to disrepair of whatever the shipping equipment is, whether it's a truck or a ship or a plane, right? And refrigeration on these modes of shipment, right, can be another whole conversation. And this arena of weaknesses for the supply chain. And we know generally, agriculturally speaking, because we're going to apply, again, commonsensical application here. When you transport food products, because some of you may have even experienced it. You may have experienced food poisoning, right? Because when food is transported from one stop in the supply chain to the next before it arrives on your restaurant table, right? Your salad that you ordered, or maybe you went to the Harris Teeter salad bar. And I'm not saying that, I love Harris Teeter salad bar. I'm just giving examples, okay? Your Sizzler, Golden Corral, I'll say all those names. You go to the buffet and there it is. It's on the, it's right there for you for the taking. The point I'm making is that the stops along the way make a difference on the condition of that food when it arrives to you. Equally, the vaccine. Now, I know that they are working on perfecting the supply chain for vaccines, but I'm going to remain concerned, healthfully concerned, not that this is intended as a scare tactic, but you always want to be aware of certain things, okay? And the degradation factor is high for the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines because they cannot be stored at room temperature. However, Johnson & Johnson can. Here's the other issue, which I've already mentioned. With the food, we've seen that the outcome can be food poisoning. We do know, unfortunately, sometimes food poisoning has resulted in death, less times than the occurrences where someone gets severely ill or otherwise mildly ill. So those are the better case scenarios, if you will. We don't know what happens when someone is injected with a spoiled vaccine, if you will. And I will take some time this week and post some of my findings. I'll post some links to journal articles on topic. I don't even know what they would call it in their, in virology. If it would be called something as straightforward as spoiled vaccines. I don't see why not, because scientists are pretty straightforward, but there may be some nomenclature that I'm not familiar with in virology that, that actually signifies, that's it's this word, So those are my concerns with the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, especially also considering that it's a 2-dose methodology or administration. And considering that if one of these doses is spoiled, or maybe both doses are spoiled, then also finding that 95% of those vaccinated will studies show that they become immune to the virus. And then you have that 5%, and 5% of 1 million is significant, right? Okay. 5% of 10 is not significant. Even, is significant to the person who catches the virus, right? But the point I'm making is that vaccination is for all Americans. So there are, 130 million of us, right? Something like that. And so 10%, is 13 million. 5% would be half of that, which is 7.5 million. So 7.5 million could come out of this and not be, not have the vaccine work effectively for their biochemistry or because of spoilage. I don't know. These are the things that are important to know. So just keep those things in mind. So what does that mean? Does that mean don't take the virus? No, that means that from my recommendation, because that's what me and my family will be taking when it is time for us, because I'm going, and this also helps with the segue to end this particular Evolve Weekly. Yay! The biggest takeaway that I want you to have for choosing which vaccine is best for you is that you need to have a physical examination. And you need to go beyond even your internist. This is not to take a dig or insult internists, but you need blood work done. Yes, your internist can have that ordered. They're generally not, some of them will do it on site, but some of them will they will send you out. If you have an allergist, this is the time to see your allergist. If you have a gastroenterologist, this is the time to see your gastroenterologist. If you have a cardiologist or orthopedic, you need to check in with your specialist prior to taking any vaccine. Why, Tigress? Because you may have underlying issues that need to be identified so that you don't run into a situation where you're one of the 2-3% who have this adverse reaction to the virus. Okay. All right. So that's number one. Number two, as I've already said, the room temperature seems like the safest bet. It may have the lower percentage rate of effectiveness over their population in their study or their sample, right? But at least you know that there's a greater likelihood that the vaccine that is being injected into you is not spoiled, is not degraded, right? Has not undergone degradation, regardless of the shipment issues, right? Now, of course, there's a caveat to everything. I don't know what happens. Well, we do know what happens. Even for those vaccines that are stored, that can be stored at room temperature, if they're exposed to high heat or extreme cold, those can be concerns as well. But that's how I want you to start. That's what I want to inspire for you all to start approaching these considerations in a very commonsensical and scientific methodology based way. So that's it. It's 5:32. I hope that I have further enlarged our collective and individual understanding and that I have not caused any further confusion or divide. I love you very much. I really do. And I hope that you enjoy your well-deserved relief fund and all the privy that comes along with the relief bill. May you all be well. All right, I'll see you next week. I am Tigress Sydney Acute McDaniel, and this is Evolve Weekly, a 52-week series on how to implement a more perfect union. Bye now.